Brian Christopher Lawler, the son of WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler, who had shockingly passed away and apparently it looks as though this was a result of suicide. This was just so heartbreaking to see and hear, okay? Because see from the standpoint of how everyone was reacting to this news when it had came about. And for me personally, I was in front of the computer and I was minding my own damn business. I wasn't even looking for any news, nothing like that. You know, if you follow me on social media, I'm the type of person, once all the wrestling content is out of the way, I've pretty much done the show. I usually like to decompress and I think about stuff that's not wrestling related. That's just how I basically am able to reset. So I'm kicking back and I actually was getting ready to record some bonus audio content for our Patreon subscribers. And the next thing I know, I get a notification on my computer that said Brian Christopher Lawler passed away, suicide. And I'm going, wait, what? Like something doesn't sound right here. So I immediately go online and I'm looking at this information. I'm going, my God. I'm like, what the hell happened? And then I'm also saying, well, okay. And look, I give a lot of credit to Bill Apter. There was only one person I trusted when the news was fresh and when everything was just, what the hell? And we're trying to make sense out of everything that had went down. There was only one person that I had trusted to give me the correct information rather than speculation and copying, pasting, all that BS, because you had a lot of people that were putting their own little spin to reporting the news, putting in their opinions, their assumptions, rather than, okay, here's the proof. Here's the definitive proof. Everything traces back to this. Here's what this individual close to the situation had said. They went on record. They said, this is what happened. Hey, a family member said this. There was nothing like that was going on from most of the sites that were reporting it. So when a guy like Bill Apter, who's seen it all, has experienced it all, has a lot of well-established contacts, when he broke the news and he revealed, okay, here's what went down. Okay, you know you can take that to the bank and you know you can cash that SOB because that is fact. That is truth. So for Bill to break the news, and you can tell it was a really rough one for him, but I would just imagine it was a rough one for everybody, especially for the Lawler family. Okay, so just to recap for you guys, earlier this month in July, Brian Lawler was arrested this month for a DUI and for evading police. Those were the charges that he was hit with. Now, you rewind it back just in 2018 alone, and I don't want people thinking, oh, we're just now jumping on the Brian Lawler bandwagon or anything like that. We were on this very same show a couple of months ago. Longtime listeners, or if you've at least been listening for about 3 months or more, we were on this same show a couple of months back, and we were talking about what had went down with Brian Lawler skipping out on a hotel bill. That hotel bill was about $900, and he skipped out on that bad boy, and he was arrested for that. And then you go to a couple of months before that second incident that had occurred. You got to go to right about, I would say, late January, February of 2018. He had got into a fight, conveniently, at a hotel with one half of the Naturals. You may remember that stable. They were in TNA briefly. Brian Lawler had got the living you-know-what kicked out of him, and he did not look good. He did not look good whatsoever. Totally unrecognizable. All right, so you combine all of those incidents that I mentioned in 2018. Not really looking too good, right? And then you combine that with, over the years, the constant problems that he was having staying clean, trying to stay sober, and those weren't really working out well, sadly. Meth apparently was his favorite to go to, all right? So you just look at all of that stuff that's going on, and it just spells disaster. It spells trouble. Come back. Let's go forward a little bit more. Brian Lawler, this latest charge, the DUI, evading police. He's in police custody. There was a bond, basically. He didn't have the money. I want to say it was like $40,000 bond or what have you. He didn't have that money. So he's sitting there in the jail. Police report, they're saying, hey, when we got him in, we took him in for processing, booking. He was acting fine. He did not give us any type of indication that he was suicidal. None of that. And so you pretty much go into the next day. They find this young man. I'm not going to get graphic as far as how he was found, but I'll let your imagination run wild as far as how he was found. But he was unresponsive. They immediately tried to perform CPR, all of that, and he was immediately taken to the hospital where doctors tried to do their very best for a couple of hours, but they pretty much had no choice but to call it. Jerry Lawler was there, and you just talk about rough. I mean, I just can't help but really feel for Jerry Lawler. I actually had the opportunity, and this isn't me boosting or bragging, so please nobody take it the way I'm getting ready to spin it, because you don't even know the direction I'm going. So listen in its entirety first before commenting. Me and Tammy, we had the opportunity to meet Jerry Lawler. It's a funny story because we met him at Awesome Con, not this year, but last year. We met him in 2017. And it was so funny because I actually saw him first and he was walking around. And she goes, hey, look, it's Jerry Lawler. I go, oh, yeah, cool. Let's go say hello to him. I said, oh, guys, like, I don't want to come off like a geek. No. She's like, what? We're members of the press. What's wrong with going up there and saying hello to him? Come on. I'm like, nah, it's like, I don't want to do that because he's probably going to think we want an autograph or something like that. He looks like he's kind of busy anyway, because at that point we saw him talking on his cell phone. And before our Awesome Con coverage was over, Tammy was like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did a photo op with Jerry? I said, yeah, I guess. Well, let's go see if we can do it. And we actually ended up talking to him for several minutes. Nice, warm, sweet guy. Really nice, warm, sweet guy. And, it was like, hey, he's all right. I wouldn't mind seeing him again, and talk to him a little bit more. I can only imagine what he's going through right now because he described it. I can't recall the shoot interview right now. I've only seen it a handful of times. I haven't watched it in a good minute. But there was a shoot interview that he did where he talked about his relationship with Brian, and he did admit that the relationship that he was having with Brian, it was strained, and that it had been strained for many years, and rightfully so, because he had divorced Brian's mom when Brian was a young kid. I can't remember the exact age, but definitely when Brian was a little boy. Jerry broke up with Brian's dad and pretty much really did not have anything to do with him. And so, yeah, you're going to have yourself a very strained relationship. Jerry also described the relationship as they had got older. It really did not feel like father-son. It kind of felt as though the two of them, maybe it was a older brother to younger brother type of relationship. Maybe it was just two friends. Almost kind of like it's just two fellow pro wrestlers. Oh, you're in the same industry as me. Okay, cool. But I would like to imagine that deep down inside, as Jerry got older, there was a big part of him that was very reflective on, man, just the way that I did my son here, I should have done this relationship a lot better. I could have. And those are the memories, I think, in that point in time, when that person is a young child and they are coming up, those years are precious. I would say from the moment that child is born all the way up until they are, I would say, 10 or 11. Those first 11 years, they are detrimental to a young child's mental development. Because if you have and look, I'm no Dr. Phil expert, but I tell you what, I know from personal experience, and I have friends and family members that know from personal experience as well. When you have a parent that's not really there in your life as a child, 9 times out of 10, that kid is going to start having some type of resentment towards that parent that had left them or whatnot. They're going to look at them in a certain light, and it's going to be extremely hard to make that child, as they come up and they become a teenager and then a young adult and then a seasoned adult, it's going to be very hard to have them waver from the old mentality that they used to have when they were a kid. Impressions mean everything. First impressions mean everything. And those first 11 years of child mental development are the most critical, because pretty much before that child is done being the age of 10 going on 11, their personality has already formed. It's pretty much developed. It's officially intact by like 13, but by 10, it's a general, it's pretty okay. This is how they're acting at 10. Okay, pretty much got this down. Have a good idea how they're going to be as a young adult. Okay, so for these two to continue to have the type of strained relationship that it had, it's unfortunate, and without a doubt, Jerry apparently had tried many times to get Brian to clean up his act. What parent wouldn't? Especially if you have the connections and you're basically saying to your kid, hey, if you can get yourself cleaned up, take care of yourself for a good minute, man, my connections, I can definitely hook you up. You don't need to worry about job security. You don't need to continue to go out here on the independents. I can set you up over here with my respected contacts. You'll be all right. You got nothing to worry about. Just trust me and just do what you got to do. I can't help you. You can only help yourself, right? And sadly, look at where Brian is now. And it's damn sad. It's damn sad. Of course, Brian Lawler, working in the USWA with his dad in the 80s, really tearing it up on the independents. Honestly, we remember when he was with Too Cool. It's like, that's one of the first things you think about is Too Cool. I also, another memory that I have, and I so agree with some of the people that were saying, hey man, Rikishi shouldn't have gone into the Hall of Fame. It should have been Too Cool, the trio itself, that should have gone into the Hall of Fame. And I definitely agree with you. And if there is a wrestling god, if there is a god in general, I hope that with Rikishi acting the way that he was acting at that Hall of Fame ceremony, pretty much acting as though I got to this dance, I didn't have any help, there were not any supporting actors that helped me along the way to get me to this point where I am right now. I'm telling you, that of all the Hall of Fame induction speeches, Rikishi's rubbed me the wrong way. It really, really did. And I just shook my head in disbelief. I know there was definitely a good amount of you guys that were going, wait a minute, he's not thinking, like, what? If there is a god, wrestling god, what have you, I hope that they are hitting Rikishi with guilt right now. I really hope that he's feeling it right now, because what you know now, if only you knew back then, I'm sure that he probably would have handled things a lot differently. One of my favorite moments, though, with regards to Brian Christopher, honestly, and I'm sure it's probably on the tip of you guys' tongue as well, I particularly enjoyed it when he had came back. I want to say it was when that feud was going on between Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole leading up to WrestleMania. There was actually a lot of people that were interested in seeing that match. But then when you see how it ended up, you're kind of going, you know. But I remember when Brian had popped up, and to help further along the feud between Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole, Brian Lawler just, oh my God, you talk about shots fired on his dad. Woo, you talk about a shoot. But then when you stop and you experience that shoot, I recommend to anybody that has not seen the Brian Lawler shoot on his dad on an infamous episode of Raw just a couple of weeks before Cole took on Lawler at WrestleMania, go look that up. That shoot was just recognizing how Jerry was a bad father, their strained relationship, all that. And sadly, that was the only time, at least on public TV, major public TV, that the Lawlers were in the same ring together. I mean, damn. I mean, how is one supposed to know, hey, a couple of years from now, you don't know, but damn, to go, wow, that was like one of the last, at the time, cool moments, but now you're kind of going, damn, wish I could kind of take that back a little bit. Sheesh. And yeah, Austin, yeah, they had faced off I don't know if they had took on the Ascension in NXT, Austin, but I do remember Too Cool had briefly reunited, and yeah, they were down in NXT helping out very, very briefly, but God, what a sad passing just to hear about. And look, here's the thing, man. Here's the thing that I really want to stress to you guys. And I've said this off and on over the years, and I really want my words to be heeded right now. If you out there, and I really hope this reaches somebody, to the point that if you know somebody that is struggling with whether it's substance abuse or it's mental health, deteriorating mental health, and they have talked about committing suicide, I want for you to do your very best to encourage them to get some type of help, whether it is picking up the phone anytime, day or night, to personally give you a call, or refer them to a 24/7 suicide prevention hotline. Do what you need to do to be there for that friend or family member in their time of need, and encourage them. Try to be proactive. You know, I can tell you this, they don't want to feel like they're being bossed around. They don't want to feel like you're trying to force them to go a certain way. The best thing you can do for somebody that is struggling with mental health, mental illness, suffering from substance abuse, but they're talking about committing suicide, lend an ear, try to be as very supportive as humanly possible. Really try to break to them the pros and the cons of what they're doing and the path that it can take them on if it continues. And sadly, you would think here in 2018 with Chester Bennington, with Chris Cornell, Robin Williams, you would think that this would kind of be like a wake-up call for some people that, okay, you know what, maybe I kind of need to get my act together. But it's sadly not. I think if anything, some people are looking at this and they're looking at it as maybe that extra motivation that they need to try to go a step further and finally ending it. They're missing so much on life when they decide, okay, you know what, life is not worth living for, right? And I get it. Everybody has their dark periods. Everybody does. I do myself. But let me tell you something, man. It is all about how you keep dusting yourself off. You get out there and you go through this thing called life. It is all about self-discovery. And I tell you what, man, if at the end of the day you just find yourself or you know somebody that does not have any self-appreciation for themselves, take time out and tell them, hey, maybe, I don't know if anybody said it to you today, but I care about you. I love you. For me, let's get you some help. And that's really all I can say with regards to that. But I really hope that my words, people that are suffering, I really hope that they hear this. I really do. So it's sad. It's really sad. It's really depressing. You're so used to hearing about people dying from cancer or dying from dementia or dying from leukemia or a car accident or things of that nature. But anytime you hear about a suicide, it's wow, this most powerful, cool thing called life that we're bestowed upon. Such a great gift, right? Because it all starts with typically two people that decide they want to bring a little person in this world. They want to nurture it and they want to give it the opportunities that they did not have as kids. And they want to see that child thrive and become a flourishing adult and be able to contribute to society. And so they decide, okay, let's go ahead, let's make life. And then for that life to reach a point in its respected life where it decides life is not worth living anymore. Now, Jerry Lawler is saying in a recent interview with a news affiliate outlet in Memphis that there, at least in his words, appears to be more that meets the eye with regards to Brian killing, I don't even want to say those words, but the whole suicide. So I wish there could have been a little bit more probing as far as, okay, Jerry, what exactly do you mean by that? What are you suspecting? You know, shed a little bit more light on it. And I know everything is still raw and emotional right now. I'm like this. I'm no legal expert or anything like this, but I do want to touch upon this, and then we'll move it along. If I am Jerry Lawler, without a doubt, I'm probably hiring some lawyers. I would imagine you're letting the police do their respective things. But what I'm very curious about is when they were doing the processing for Brian. Typically, when you go in, and I researched all of this, so typically when you are booked and processed, one of the questions that they ask you is, does suicide run in your family? Do you have any suicidal tendencies? Have you recently been angry about something? They ask you these psychiatric questions. They will ask you these questions face to face just to make sure everything is on point. And then they have a copy of that in your jacket. So I'm very curious what his responses to all of that was, if one was filled out. Because this almost reminds me of the young black woman, and I'll have to rely on you guys. I'll have to defer to you guys in the chat to jog my memory with the woman's name. But you guys remember the black woman that had made headlines about, I would say, almost 2 years ago, it feels like, where she had got arrested, she was in a jail, and she was doing vlogs and everything. She was doing like inspirational stuff. Young black woman. She was probably in her late 30s, maybe early 40s. An attractive young woman. And one of the last phone calls that she had made, it was to a relative, and she said, hey, look, I'm in jail. Well, they had arrested me for blah, 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 but it's a load of bull. And sadly, I don't have the money to get myself released here. Could you try to generate the money for me? And that was the last phone conversation that she had while she was alive with a family member. And the family member said, okay, well, I hate to tell you this, but you're going to have to sit tight for now. We're definitely going to try to see what we can do to get the money together to bail you out, but just hang in there. You're going to be there for at least overnight, but I think I might be able to do something for you tomorrow. Thank you, Gino. Sandra Bland. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Sandra Bland. And you go into the next day, and supposedly she committed suicide. And you're going, wait a minute, what the hell is going on? I'm bringing her up because there was a series on TV One, and sadly, I don't know the name of the series right now that was on TV One. It escapes my mind, but they had talked about the Sandra Bland case, and they talked about it from the family's perspective, and they had also talked about it from the sheriff's county's office that booked her and all that. They talked about it from their perspective. The paperwork for her booking and processing, originally, it did say, it was marked that suicide did run in her family and or she did have suicidal tendencies. But then when you see another copy, like the copy that is officially in her jacket, you see that it looks as though somebody had tried to erase that. Maybe like they made a Xerox copy of the original, but they had erased, but they didn't necessarily do a hard erase. So it's kind of questionable. So if I'm Jerry Lawler and the attorneys and everything like that, I'm looking at that paperwork and I'm trying to establish whether or not those were indicated. And I tell you what, that could open up a big old can of worms, depending on who's investigating us. I would like to believe that with regards to that police department that was processing and booking Brian Lawler, that they aren't going to be in charge of that investigation, nor should they be. They need someone that is unbiased, has no connections, to come in and do their own official investigation, because now, I don't think it's a homicide. I definitely don't. And I'm not trying to imply it's a homicide, but you definitely need to have a team go in there to make sure that without a doubt there was any foul play involved.